Hey, in this lesson, I want to share with you everything I know about picking and right hand placement. Just where to put your hand, how to hold the pick, how to glide across the strings, how to pick faster and cleaner. So let's dive in. My name is Will Ripley. This is Campfire Guitar Star. So over my career of teaching guitar, many students are extremely grateful for this lesson. So make sure to tune in with me here and just make sure that you tune in with yourself and make sure that you're doing some of these things. Because when it comes down to playing one note at a time, whether that's on single note riffs or even licks in between chords, and of course soloing and shredding, we're gonna wanna make sure that your right hand is planted and connected to the guitar. And there's a few different ways that I wanna talk to you about this and how you can make sure that you're locked and loaded and ready to rip. But the very first thing that I wanna point out is that, check this out. I want you to check in on my right hand here. So when I play this iconic tune, and go ahead and write it in the comments if you know this one, but it sounds like this. So you probably know that tune, but specifically look at my right hand, okay? So when I'm picking the notes, I'm getting connected to the guitar. And then when I'm strumming, I disconnect from the guitar or I start floating off the guitar and I start strumming, okay? Watch it again. So that in a nutshell is kind of some of the stuff that we're going to be hopping into, but I want to talk more specifically about your right hand placement, where it goes on the guitar, what you do with your fingers, what you do with your palm, all this kind of stuff. So with guitar, there's a lot of misconceptions and this is kind of a cloudy area with guitar playing is where we put our hands. And it's like, how do we play faster? How do we, pick notes cleaner and faster? I think that's like a goal of many people, including myself. So that's kind of an overview of what we're going to be talking about. But we're gonna drill down a lot deeper and I wanna share with you some of the stuff that I've discovered. And also I've been just very lucky to have met some really big time shredders like Thornley from Big Wreck, John 5, and Nuno Bettencourt. And I've actually got to talk with these guys, like actually have conversations and specifically about guitar and how you hold your pick and kind of like all the stuff going on with the right hand. And of course those guys are extremely fast pickers. So I want to share with you some of those things and some of the things that have worked for me over the years and of course my students as well. But that's one of the big overarching concepts, and the very first thing I want to blast out here is that you got to get connected to your guitar. So many people are trying to play single notes without being connected to their guitar, and it's not giving you the anchoring points that you need. So as you can see, my arm is on the guitar right here, and that's kind of your first anchor point for your guitar. And the next anchor point is going to be kind of the heel of your hand, okay? And also kind of this fleshy part of your thumb, which I call the thumb pillow, okay? So that's going to be resting, and this goes for acoustic, electric, Gibson style, Fender styles, all the above. But typically on this edge of the bridge is where my kind of thumb pillow goes. Now, the very first thing that I want to pop out here is that this is going to change when you stand up. So when I stand up, I realize my head's out of frame now, but my guitar is typically going to be a little bit lower unless you're playing like Tom Morello, okay? But if you're going lower, typically you're going to use the edge of your pinky finger to rest on that bridge, okay? And so what I've discovered is that when you're sitting down, kind of the angle and everything changes a little bit. But yeah, typically you're going to be using kind of more of your thumb edge or your thumb pillow. And when you're standing up, you're going to be kind of focusing more on your pinky finger edge. But what I've really discovered, and I was kind of like looking into Slash's style of guitar playing and how he rests his hand. And I really started noticing like this thing going on where it was this pinky finger edge, but also resting fingers on the pickguard or below the strings. And I started realizing that a lot of stability comes from here. But a lot of guitar players especially new guys coming in my doors, I've seen people like they do funny things, like they anchor just their one pinky finger and they're playing like that, or they're gliding all their whole hand like this and playing like this, and just all this kind of funny thing. So what I've noticed with pro players is that they're usually doing a combination of this edge of their hand and the pinky finger edge of their hand. So it ends up looking something like this. Like I said, there's a stability point here. And as mentioned, your first stability point is with your arm. But yeah, then our hand comes down on that edge of the bridge. But then also, a lot of times there's, to get really fast picking and some really solid stability here, is that if you use your pinky finger, third finger, second finger, or maybe just one of those fingers, or something along here with some of these extra fingers, that's going to provide another level of stability. Now, another note on that is, like I said, I got to chat with John Five, who's just an incredible guitar player, and I got to watch him from front row and also attended a clinic of his and stuff. Something that was really interesting to me about his particular style of playing was he was actually gliding his fingernails on his pickguard. So if you actually check out some John Five, pictures or videos, you'll actually see kind of this scratch on his pickguard. And what that's from is from his fingernails gliding back and forth on his pickguard so much that it's actually worn through into his pickguard. So why don't we just go ahead and grab any old note, and in fact we can even mute our fretting hand just to really focus in on the right hand and all these different areas that we can think about. So we've got stability point 1, 2, and 3, okay? And also just seeing if we can get some sort of fingernail glide, okay? And I've done a couple of different exercises in past videos that you'll be able to find. One of which is just playing every note on the fretboard, which is just going up with the Spiderwalk, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That way you can kind of shut your brain off. You don't have to think too much. Also, Mike B's got a great lesson where he just puts on a metronome and just starts playing along with, or just any old fretted note and just playing along with that metronome. Okay, so any kind of simple thing that you can do will help you just kind of focus in on some of these areas, okay? So those are some of the stability points that you want to check in on anytime you're playing one note at a time. So that could be sometime when you're playing a riff. Okay, so as you can see, my hand is really connected to the guitar there. Anytime you're soloing, right, again, I'm connected to the guitar. P.S., we're muting the strings as well. So like if I were to do that same lick, floating, there's a lot of sound coming off the guitar, right? So when we get our hand connected to the guitar, we're able to mute those unwanted notes. So that's kind of like another big reason why you want to connect that hand into your guitar. A couple other things I want to point out to you is how I actually learned how to play guitar, and a lot of guys do this too, is with a soft fist. So if I just blast through something, okay, so you can see my fingers are curled in, but I do find that when I'm standing up, my guitar is a little bit lower, and that will just help me get into place with my fingers down here. So again, it comes back to that idea of sitting down versus standing up and just where your guitar is. But I have noticed guitarists like Pete Thorne comes to mind if you have checked out his YouTube channel or any of his guitar playing, but he typically plays with fingers curled in. But I think that's another reason why he plays with his fingers curled in, is because a lot of times his YouTube videos are where he's sitting down. So anyways, I feel like that's necessary to mention. And also, it doesn't hurt to have a stiff, sharp pick, okay? If you have if you kind of compare your edges of your pick to one of these round edges, like you're gonna have a heck of a time playing fast. Like a worn out pick is not gonna do you any favors. So to have a fresh pick, so this one isn't a particularly stiff pick. It's a .60, but typically a lot of people do find that you can play a little faster and smoother with a stiffer pick. So let's just bring our focus into something basic again. I'm just gonna grab a low E string here. So I've got all my stability points in place. There's a couple other things with picking that I've noticed, like there's this motion here, okay, with your thumb and your first finger. So, and it's just like kind of a wiggle, okay? And we're gonna emphasize that for a second, okay? And the other area is just your wrist, okay? And typically you don't wanna get any other muscles engaged. Like a lot of times I notice that if I'm not really focused on being relaxed, that my shoulder, like my whole kind of upper shoulder will get like kind of overly engaged and like I kind of like stiffen up. So it's good to bring in a little bit of focus into firstly this area. So let's just try a couple of pick notes like that. So really just focusing on that thumb and first finger and getting movement from there. Okay. Also, you'll notice that my pick is on an angle, and that's because my finger is curled around the pick a little bit, and that's allowing that pick to not be flat against the strings and rather a slight angle on it. Okay. So as you can imagine, if my pick is flat against the string, there's way too much pick and string contact there to allow for fast playing. So that's why I say when you're holding the pick, you want to have a slight curl around it, and that will just set everything up nicely with these stability points and muting that we've already talked about, but also it'll set up your pick for that 45-degree angle. So it's kind of like gliding through the pick or gliding through the strings on the edge of the pick rather than on the flat parts of the pick. So bringing that into focus while we kind of focus on this thumb and finger wiggle. Okay, and the other area is just your wrist right here, okay? So this type of motion, okay? And it's really all about these tiny little movements, and that was confirmed when I chatted with Ian Thornley from Big Wreck. If you don't know Big Wreck, he's an awesome guitar player, and definitely their music's worth checking out. And he just talked about like really zooming in on these small little muscles just in your wrists, right? And anything else doesn't need to be engaged. And if you caught my no time to practice video and like my super easy way to practice guitar video that's on the channel here, talked about like relaxing, you know, seeing if you can get rid of any tension in your legs or your shoulders or your neck, or maybe your teeth are clenched, or you're doing something funny with your tongue is hanging out the side of your mouth or whatever. Just see if you can relax all these other areas of your body that don't need to be engaged. Like when it comes down to this movement, like it's really coming down to these little muscles getting engaged, okay, and staying relaxed. So we can bring focus into the first finger and the thumb, and then we can also just bring focus into that wrist motion. And then what you can do is you can kind of think about both of those happening. Of course, just a minuscule amount, but as you can see, like when I'm doing this picking motion, I am engaging this first position of my thumb and first finger and my wrist, okay? And when I combine those, I can find kind of this sweet spot, this sweet medium spot where I engage both of those bits of just those small areas in my hand and wrist. That's another thing I would suggest is see if you can kind of come up with a cool melody. Like a video that I released recently, I talked about using the melody to the Dick Dale song, of course from the Pulp Fiction movie. It's full of all kinds of cool little accents in there as well. And you get a cool little melody. And my point is that if you focus on some of the stuff on one string, rather than blasting through all 6 strings on a complex lick or scale or something like that, that kind of takes away from all the focus that we're trying to bring in here with the stability points and your thumb and finger and your wrist and the pick angle and stuff like that. And that's why I'm saying if you just use something basic like an open string with a metronome, even muted, okay, or something simple like that Spiderwalk, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, where we don't have to like engage its whole other side of our brain when we're really just trying to focus on the right hand placement and technique. But when you do go ahead and glide across your strings, let's check out how we might do that. And really, of course, your left hand and your right hand are working together here. So if we use that simple exercise of the Spiderwalk to go up our strings, just check out that my hand will actually glide down. So you don't want to have your wrist just solidified on that edge of the bridge, because of course that would make your wrist go into this funny position when you reach these high strings. As you can see, I've got like this wrist angle here that's just kind of like awkward. So pretty much keep your wrist and your hand like aligned in a straight line. And as I work my way up this scale, you'll notice that I'm just gliding my hand, of course starting in that starting position on this bridge, but then gliding up the strings. I'm muting the strings I don't want to hit, which is that added bonus, and I'm focusing on this super easy scale, all while I glide my hand up to the high string. So that might look something like this. So that's the way I would suggest trying it out. Just do something super basic, see if you can integrate all these things that I talked about in this video, the pick angle, the first finger thumb, the wrist, and just focus on one string, just something really simple, just so you can kind of turn your brain off musically and just really focus on some of the physical sensations and the physical things that need to be in place. And then when you are actually working across the strings, do something really basic and simple like that 1, 2, 3, 4 Spiderwalk exercise and just glide up and down the strings, all the while just really being in tune with your body, trying to relax things that don't need to be engaged, and see if you can just get some of these aspects going on with your picking. And do stay tuned for the next video, because then I want to actually hop into some picking exercises. Some of these are very musical, by the way, so stay tuned for that one. I hope you enjoyed this video here. Leave a thumbs up, a comment, all that good stuff. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for future videos like this. And until the next one, keep on ripping it up.